Right, good morning everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here. I'm delighted to welcome you to our G Cloud 12 briefing. Very grateful to Mark, Sandra, and the team from CCS for coming along and sharing hopefully everything you guys all need to know, so that when the OJU launches, I don't know if we'll find out the date today, but when the OJU launches, you can get onto G Cloud and start making the most of your position on there. And thank you as well to Chris, our very good friend from Advice Cloud, who coming along again. We are a bit of a burden on his time every year for this event, but coming along and sharing his expertise on how, in his experience, suppliers can really make the most out of the digital marketplace. Just a couple of pieces of housekeeping from me before we start. Firstly, no fire alarm drills scheduled for this morning, so if we do hear it go, please do follow my high-vis clad colleagues out into the fire assembly point downstairs. Secondly, we are, for those who weren't able to make it today for this session, we are videotaping the briefing so that we can share it online on the techUK website and via CCS with everyone. So we'll send that link to you, but do just bear that in mind. So if you're asking a question, although the room's not that large, you might feel you don't need a microphone, but please do wait for the microphone so that that's picked up on the recording afterwards. And we'll share the slide deck with everyone after the event as well. So first we'll hear from Mark at CCS, then we'll hand over to Chris, and then I'll ask if you save Q&A until sort of the panel discussion at the end. That would be great, but I think that's enough for me. Just a quick test of the clicker. Perfect. It's right to move forward, left to move back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. My name's Mark Took with Crown Commercial Services. I'm the category account manager, and I've been with CCS a year today. I'm here with my colleague Sandra, who's been here a bit longer than me. She's our new category lead for G Cloud, and also with Patrick Nolan, who's our new director for Digital Futures. So today we're going to talk a bit about, well, I've already made the introductions, talk a bit about what's going on in CCS, an overview and background about G Cloud and what's coming up, and obviously about G Cloud 12, the forthcoming procurements, and at the end, as Henry mentioned, we'll take questions after Chris has done his presentation. So, CCS, we're an organisation who sets up commercial agreements to bring together public sector buyers and suppliers to, form contracts to deliver to deliver services to the public sector. So we look to provide best value for all our contracts for the public sector. We want to ensure, the public sector services at the front line are, getting best value for money, and obviously that's through the contracts that they agree with yourselves. We're very customer focused. We host lots of events talking to public sector buyers. We've got one going on at the moment in London. We talk about the different frameworks that we have available and how they should use them. Of course, we've got, CCS has, I think, around 80 frameworks, live frameworks at the moment. We're doing around about £18 billion worth of spend per year across our frameworks. So, a lot of business comes through CCS. So, our news, we welcomed Patrick to our organisation probably a couple of months ago. January 6th. Patrick came over from HMRC, and I believe he's got a background in commercials and technical transformations. Yep. Also, another change within the G-Cloud team is our category lead Kevin. He's on leave for a while, and Sandra Milburn's stepped into the role as category lead. And we also have two newish members of staff on our team, Bruce McLeod and Will Payne, and another new member started just a few weeks ago, Ursula Long. So the team's now around about 7 staff. So we've grown sort of significantly over the last year or so. From, I think, about a year ago we had about 3 staff, and now we're up to about 7. So the team's growing. We've got some new frameworks coming out or are out. Quality assurance and testing, that's now live. Automation in the marketplace and AI, they're up and coming procurements. Digital outcomes and specialists, DOS 5, that's planned for later this year. And cloud compute, again, is planned for later this year. So keep an eye on our up and coming deals section on CCS website, so you can see what's coming up, what you might be interested in applying for. Of course, the one I've missed off is the one we're here to talk about, which is G-Cloud 12. So, why is G-Cloud a thing? It's why does the public sector need something like G-Cloud? Well, we believe, or government believes, it's a good idea for the public sector to operate as efficiently as possible, and the government's designed this thing called Cloud First policy, which helps drive public sector organisations to work more efficiently with their technology by hosting things in the cloud. And therefore, G-Cloud framework helps to enable that. So G-Cloud is an online catalogue of cloud-based services. So we're looking at hosting, software, and support services. And it hosts a huge range of services, 30,000 odd services hosted on digital marketplace. We reprocure the framework regularly, every 12 months. So this enables services not to become too stale and to be refreshed every year. I've already talked about the Cloud First, and the framework is it's an off-the-shelf commodity type framework. So they are there's no design or bespoke development. It's all off-the-shelf products. And because it's a cloud-based, because it's a catalogue-based framework, buyers can search the framework to find out what services they need and make their selection. And so the procurement process is fast and efficient for them, and also compliant with regulations. So, as I said, G-Cloud's got 4,000 suppliers. G-Cloud 11 has 30,000 services. So 90% of the suppliers are SMEs, and around 40% of the spend goes to SMEs. Since G-Cloud launched in 2012, it's over £5 billion has been spent with G-Cloud. So we're seeing that rise every year as well. So there's a huge opportunity for growth. Last year, in 2019, 1,467 suppliers reported spend. So, a decent amount of suppliers got spend, but you could also say, well, actually, a large proportion of suppliers didn't win anything. So, we are looking at ways to address that. So, from last July, CCS employed a team of business development managers who their role is to go across the country visiting wider public sector organisations to raise the profile of CCS, to hopefully encourage more spend coming through our frameworks. So we should start seeing results of that investment quite soon. I think there's about 30 of these business development managers across the country, and we are seeing leads coming in all the time with buyers interested in our framework. So hopefully that will start increasing the amount of spend coming through the frameworks, and therefore the amount of suppliers who are winning contracts. Let's move on. Oops. Apologies for that slide. That's pretty blurry, but this is the digital marketplace I was talking about. So this is where we host some of our frameworks. So digital outcomes and specialists, those links, and G-Cloud is this link. Sorry, it's so blurry, but this is where the G-Cloud is hosted. You'll notice on there, if you can read it, there's a note there that G-Cloud 12 will be open on the 3rd of March 2020. That's when applications will open. And you'll note here, if you can read it, become a supplier. So if you're not already a supplier on G-Cloud, you can log into Digital Marketplace, click that link and set yourself up with an account. So as a matter of interest, how many people are not currently on G-Cloud? How many suppliers? So we're all G-Cloud. Excellent. So you won't need to set up accounts. So the Digital Marketplace mainly hosts two frameworks, the major frameworks, G-Cloud and DOS. What's the difference between the two frameworks? Well, as said earlier, G-Cloud is utility-based, off-the-shelf, commodity-type services, whereas DOS is built-to-order, bespoke-type services. G-Cloud is a contract award after an evaluation process by the buyers, whereas DOS is a further competition process where the buyers publish their requirements. In G-Cloud, suppliers' terms and conditions are included, where with DOS it's government T's and C's. G-Cloud, the supplier retains any IPR, whereas with DOS, it's the customer takes ownership. And with DOS, it's an agile development process, whereas obviously with G-Cloud, it's an off-the-shelf product, so there's no development or very little, just configuration only. So the buyers, how do they procure? So they begin with, like any other procurement, with drawing up a specification. This may include, talking to you guys up front with some pre-market engagement to help them design, what it is they want to buy. Once I've drawn up a detailed list of requirements, they'll then search on the digital marketplace. So the search is it's a keyword or phrase that they input, and that needs to be descriptive of what it is they want to buy. So they wouldn't be compliant if they just typed in a company name, because that wouldn't be a fair procurement process. So as long as they're using recognised industry terminology to search what they're looking for, that's what they should be doing. So typically that will throw up a long list of suppliers. I don't know, it varies. It might be 10, or it might be 300. They can further shortlist that list by using an array of filters on the search function to bring that down to a more manageable shortlist. And then to really narrow down their search, they can then start asking suppliers clarification questions about what's published on Digital Marketplace, about your services that you've published. They go through the evaluation and selection process and make their selection of the most appropriate service to meet their requirements, and then they award the contract, call-off contract, to the supplier. And at the end of the process, they fill in a form to tell us what benefits they've received from this process, from this procurement, and that's generally how a procurement will look on G-Cloud. So the obligations for suppliers are, every month suppliers have to report management information, MI, to CCS. So you have to do that every month regardless whether you've done any business or not. So if you haven't done any business, you will report a nil return. And that process has to go on throughout the life of the framework. And if you do have any call-off contracts, for the life of the call-off contracts, even though the framework may have expired, we have to report this information to government. So it's essential that you do this every month. And there's clauses in the framework to say that if you don't report, you may be removed from the framework. So it's essential that everybody does report their MI every month. So here's the timeline for G-Cloud 12 procurement. So earlier this week we had sign off from our senior people in CCS to allow us to publish the OJU on the 28th of February, Friday, which means applications will open on the 3rd of March on Digital Marketplace, and you can start asking clarification questions on that date also. Clarification questions have to be asked through the Digital Marketplace, so you can't phone us directly or email us. All clarifications have to go through the Digital Marketplace. The deadline for asking clarifications is the 1st of April, but obviously we encourage you to ask them as early as possible to help help with your application. The final clarifications will be published on the 15th of April, and applications closing on the 22nd of April. So, I think the advice is to start your applications as early as possible as well. Successful applicants will be notified on the 5th of June, and that's when the 10-day standstill period will start as well. And the expected go live date is the 2nd of July. So G-Cloud 11 ends on the 1st of July, followed by G-Cloud 12 going live on the 2nd of July. So that's the planned timetable. It can change, but we're hoping it won't. And this is what we're planning to work to. So what are the changes for G-Cloud 12? So on G-Cloud 11, some suppliers upload service definition documents to support their service offerings, and some don't. So buyers, they have when they're evaluating or comparing different services, they haven't always got the same set of information to compare against. And obviously, feedback we've had from buyers is that it'd be great if we had more of a standardised set of information to compare different suppliers' services against. So the main change we're making this time is that we're making service definition documents mandatory. So when you apply for G-Cloud, you have to upload service definition documents for each service you're going to apply with. Otherwise, that service won't pass. It'll be failed. We think this is another way to help those 2,600 odd suppliers who didn't win anything, by improving the information on G-Cloud, we're hoping, by having good quality information uploaded as part of your submission, that will can only help you win business. Another change is we're also looking to improve the application process on digital marketplace. So our partners, GDS, Government Digital Service, who host the digital marketplace, they're looking at some development work on a digital signature process, which might, make that part of the process easier rather than having to download the contract, signing it and re-uploading it. We found, last year, or for G-Cloud 11, there's, it caused quite a bit of headache, a few headaches for people. So hopefully this process will make that much more slick. Obviously you're all G-Cloud 11 suppliers, so you've already got DUNS numbers, but obviously you've got to have a DUNS number to apply, and the application process will check the DUNS numbers against your company reg numbers. They've got an API now which will make that an automated task, so you need to make sure when you apply, your DUNS number, your company reg number and your registered name all tie up. Otherwise, you may be asked to verify what what is correct. Apart from these changes, it's the same as G-Cloud 11, so it's business as usual. But we're hoping, a small change of making those documents mandatory will hopefully help, improve the quality of information and be a standard set of information for buyers to use. So, same as G-Cloud 11, the services you can sell are, hosting services, cloud software, and cloud support services. That hasn't changed at all. Again, what's out of scope, no co-location services, no non-cloud related services or consultancy, any services that require development or design or any made to order kind of services. Again, hardware is not permitted unless it's integral with the service you're selling and doesn't constitute the major proportion of the cost. So you can't sell loads of computers on there, but if it's something which is perhaps a door entry system maybe, which you can't buy the two bits of, you can't buy the software and the hardware separately, that may be permitted. And no recruitment services. Application process. So we encourage you to think about the wording in your short description that buyers might search for. So, if they're looking for hosting, will they type in hosting? Will they type in, PaaS? Will they type in, platform as a service? If they're looking for a procurement system, will they type in e-procurement? Will they type in e-tendering? Will they type in, e-tendering, e-no-hyphen? So just be mindful of the wording you use. Don't use any jargon. Use, industry sort of standard, descriptions. Ensure your pricing is clear on your pricing forms. We get a lot of queries from buyers saying, we don't understand the pricing. It's really difficult to compare to competitors. We don't, so then they have to ask clarification questions, which, takes the procurement process longer to complete. So try and get your pricing as clear as you can. Don't use POA or any links to your websites with pricing. That's not permitted. So the pricing you publish is the pricing that buyers will have to pay. So it can't be any sort of live links where the pricing can change. Already said service definition documents are now mandatory. So if you haven't got any, I advise you start getting those prepared. We've already covered that part. During the process, if you've got any clarification questions, please ask them as early as you can. Obviously, we look to answer your questions twice a week during the application process. But if some of them are a bit more technical, we might have to go and get the answers from legal people or technical people. So it might take us a bit longer to get the answers for you. But if you ask them as early as you can after reading through all the documentation, then we can provide you with the answers, which will hopefully enable you to complete your applications early, and leave plenty of time to complete your submissions, your applications. Start on that as on the 3rd of March when they open. Start it straight away would be my advice. Don't leave it to the last minute. In G-Cloud 11, we know that there were quite a few suppliers who, for one reason or another, didn't complete them early, and asked, oh, can we have some more time? The answer is no, you can't. You need to complete them by the deadline. Yeah, ask clarifications, questions early. Start your applications early. Don't leave submissions to the last minute. Don't upload any out-of-scope services, so not non-cloud related services, no standalone or bespoke, because when we start assuring the services, if they are out of scope, they'll be suspended or removed, and that's no good for you or us. So applications are on the digital marketplace. You need to be registered on digital marketplace, which you all are, because you're all on G-Cloud 11. I would probably still check your login details if you haven't been on for a while to make sure you can still log on. Make sure all your contact details are up to date. So if any email addresses have changed, and if you've had a change of staff and new people need to be added or taken off, just make sure everything's up to date. As I said earlier, make sure your company details are up to date on there. DUNS number, company reg number, registered name. Make sure they all match and are up to date. You can copy your services over from G-Cloud 11 to G-Cloud 12 as a copy function. However, you can't copy over any documents, so your pricing document, your terms and conditions, your service definition document, if you've got a supplier rate card or a modern slavery statement, you'll have to re-upload those. They can't be copied over. PDFs can't be copied over. As I said earlier, ask the supplier portal on the digital marketplace to ask clarification questions. And after the go live date, we will either run webinars or send out a recording of a webinar to go over the main elements of the G-Cloud 12 framework with you. I've already looked at that slide, so yeah, become a supplier. You already are suppliers, so you don't really need to see that. Keep an eye on this page. So go to digital marketplace, go to this link, apply to G-Cloud, enter your company details, make supplier declarations, then add it and edit and complete your services as part of your submission. Okay, some useful links here. So we've got the digital marketplace login, how to create a supplier account. We've got our website, Crown Commercial Services. If I can take you to that, it's worth keeping an eye on our website. How can I click? I want to click a couple of links there. Henry? I have to do that there, do I?
Oh, this is not. It looks like the battery in the mouse. This top one?
No, the second one from the bottom. So it's worthwhile just keeping an eye on our website. Back a little. So especially this up-and-coming deals link. Click on it. So it tells us what procurements have been recently awarded, which you might want to know about. Then it tells us about what procurements are in progress. So obviously you can look down here to see, probably be looking for technical ones. So these are all corporate and buildings. There's a technology one. So there's a couple of technology ones on here at the moment. Automation marketplace is one you might be interested in. Scroll down, Henry. Don't need to look at that bit, really, the APSs. And this is the planned procurements section you might be interested in. Obviously we've got G-Cloud 12 here at the moment, the planned procurement. But as other ones come online, the ones I spoke about earlier, you'll see them sort of start popping up on here. And then there's our sort of future pipeline of things which you might be interested in. So, at the moment we've got Technology 3 services, as a planned. You'll probably see DOS 5 appear on there later in the year as well. So, and cloud compute. So it's worth keeping an eye on the website just to make sure you're aware of what's coming up. That's it for that. Can we just click on that last link on there? Bring that one up. It's just another link I just want to share with you, which is it's a dashboard that we publish, which it shows what business has been done through the digital marketplace. We can go on to the next. This is all the digital marketplaces, 7.4 billion. We'll go on to the and this one's specific to G-Cloud. So, since 2012, we've done 5.7 billion through G-Cloud. Nearly 44% has gone to SMEs. And you can start drilling down using the filters. So, you can just, if you're interested in health, for example, you can just click on health up the top right. And it gives you some rich data. So, it tells you, what organisations are buying, what money they're spending. It tells you what suppliers are winning business. So, if you're sort of struggling with developing your service definition or your, the service description, you think, well, hang on, how can I make my, my service offering look better, more attractive, on digital marketplace? Look at people, perhaps your competitors, see who's being successful. Go onto digital marketplace, have a look at, see how they're wording their service descriptions. You might be able to glean some ideas and sort of benchmark what other people are doing. So, that's one hint that you might like to take away. You can, obviously there's a range of filters over there as well. So, you can really drill down to individual suppliers, years, and customers if you wish. So that's quite a lot of rich data on that dashboard. So I'd recommend looking at that. That's it for links. Questions and answers. So at the end, after Chris has done his presentation, we'll take any questions and answers that you might have after then. Thanks very much.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you this morning. My name's Chris Farthing. I run a company called Advice Cloud. Thanks very much to CCS for that. My slides may be very short, but you've got a lot of the content in there already on the top tips, so I'm glad you've been paying attention. I'm only joking. A quick introduction to us. Okay, why am I qualified to stand up here and talk about public sector procurement and G-Cloud? So my background is a buyer in public sector, more years than I care to mention. I've worked in various places like DEFRA, Metropolitan Police, Financial Conduct Authority, lots of local government buying some fairly complicated cloud or technology-related procurements, moving on to cloud and digital and using G-Cloud from version 1. But we work with buyers and suppliers. So my organisation was set up over 5 years ago. The ethos that we have as an organisation was that the more informed the supply chain is about how government buys, the better range of solutions and suppliers and better price of services we're going to get, rather than buying from the same old faces that traditionally we're pretty much forced to until G-Cloud came along, to be honest. A bit of a drum roll type thing. Since October 2014, since we started the company, we've done over 200 clients we've successfully listed across on a bunch of different frameworks. 300 services, over £400 million has been community won by clients of us just on G-Cloud and DOS alone since working with us. Okay, there's been some significant wins and a lot of SMEs that we work with as well. Obviously 75% of our client base are SMEs, and I think something like 67% of those are actually selling as well, have made sales, and many of them continue to grow. So we're very, very pleased with that as well. We've got a 100% success rate on all frameworks. I mean, G-Cloud as an application process is relatively straightforward. Nobody really fails unless you make something silly. But over 1,000 organisations last year didn't get on, as I remember, didn't fail to complete their applications in time. So they didn't fail to get on, they failed to complete their applications in time. So, we'll talk about some things you need to do to make sure you can negate that risk in a bit of there. But on all the frameworks we've worked on, 17 to date, it's actually probably about 19 or 20 given the amount of frameworks that have suddenly come out in the past few months. We've got, 100% success rate. And some of those are very, very difficult ones, including more premier CCS frameworks like technology, products and solutions, and network services too. Okay, so seeing some of our private sector clients, a good range of large and small, and some of the public sector clients that we've done businesses with well and we've helped out. So, we think we know what we're talking about when it certainly comes around buying cloud and digital services, but we're very, very pleased to work quite relatively closely with CCS. We're very complimentary about the way things should be done as well. We certainly wouldn't recommend any non-compliant advice, shall we say, put it that way. We have a bunch of people that work with us as well. There's a couple of people in the room here. We have Sarah Hinchliffe here is an ace bid writer. Bid manager, sorry. We won't talk about the writing. If you want to have and Lindsay Smith as well. Lindsay, there you are. If you want to talk about G-Cloud marketing or marketing to the public sector anyway, certainly if you're an SME, Lindsay's the man to talk to. But we've got some ex-people, a lot of ex-gov here, so there's some very interesting characters across central police and the wider public sector. So it's not just about me. We've got some really good people that are there who help advise our clients on how to make the best of their journey into the public sector and selling to them. Okay. Nice quote there from Sarah Klein, one of our clients, ICT Revs, about how much we've done. So, I'm not going to go too much this time. I'm here to talk about other stuff rather than about us, but just a little introduction to who we are. So, Mark's covered quite a few top tips off on what to do. No, it's fine, it's great. I've done don'ts and do's rather than do's and don'ts, okay? So, we've got stuff here. So, Mark talks about the description of your service. There's a particular top about 50 words you can use on your G-Cloud listing. I think everybody here is already on G-Cloud. Is that correct? Or is anyone here who's not? That's fine. That's great. So I don't need to start with the whole what the framework's all about. So don't make your service summary too short. You've got 50 words to use there. Try to use them as descriptive as possible without using terms that buyers can't really use as well. Making sure it's descriptive, not too technical, and relatively straightforward to understand. A buyer can't search for, as Mark quite clearly pointed out, can't search for your brand name. Okay, it's a non-compliant search, so don't just rely on someone being able to search for your product or brand name, and think about your product description as well. I once had an organisation that had been through a bit of a rebranding exercise in very early days, wanted to list their service called Blue Banana. I don't know of a buyer in the UK that's ever searched for blue bananas, certainly relating to technology. So we had a very long and heated discussion about that. And you won't find any information on Google about them either. Change the brand. Again, don't use language that's too technical or salesy. It needs to be understood and easily digested and easily evaluated against your competitors as well. Now, don't just rely on buyers finding you by typing in some words. You do need to use a bunch of filters, especially if you're a SaaS provider or a cloud hosting provider that are down the side, and they're very, very useful to accurately help you with your search, but also to help you describe what your product does and filter you down. And we recommend you make use of those and correctly categorize as well your service. You've got, I think off the top of my head, something like 15 to 18 categories under cloud hosting and 20 plus categories under cloud software. Now, that may be more, my knowledge on that, but it's a bit out of date, I'm afraid. Again, please don't use links. Mark's clearly pointed that out. Links are, I'm only allowed as a buyer, I'm only allowed to evaluate what's in front of me. It's not taking me away from what they're, that pretty much is non-compliant. There's a few organisations that get away with it, but best not to do that, to be honest. Price on request, it's a catalogue. I'm supposed to be able to buy what I see in front of me. Price on application should really, if you put that on there, then you deserve to be taken down, I'm afraid. It's completely non-compliant, that's a no-no. We still see it. Also, it's not on here. Talking about your pricing, the maximum length of call-off is 4 years. So if you start putting 5-year pricing deals on there, again, buyers can't do that. They can buy the maximum amount of the call-off contract, which is the contract between you and the buyer or the buying authority, is up to 4 years. In central government, it's 2 + 1 + 1. In the wider public sector, can contract for 4 years, although try not to do that. You need to give an opportunity to get off your stuff. Okay, and again, Mark has already pointed out, don't do overly complicated pricing, especially stuff that varies in currency. It can cause you problems later down the line when you're trying to actually contract and trying to, someone might have started a procurement, evaluated you 2 or 3 months ago, and it takes a little while to get through the governance processes. Then when it comes down to actually awarding the contract, because of currency fluctuations, your price is significantly different, i.e. gone up, and they can't afford it anymore, they're going to have to go back and start again. All right? So try to avoid that as well. In terms of do's, have a cunning plan. Actually think about your submission, who needs to be involved, where you're going to get that information from, time it so that you've got your timing right, work back from the submission date, preferably allowing you, we as an organisation, we take probably over 100 organisations through this round of G-Cloud, and we never do anything on the last day. Okay, it's a golden rule. In fact, on any framework, we never do anything on the last day. We'll try not to, because you never know what's going to happen to your networks. They might go down, and then you'll miss your stuff, and you might be out for another year. All right. So, and also remember that it's a team sport. Some people we work with, they get so het up, they think they've got to do everything themselves. But get your product people involved, get security involved, get sales, commercial, marketing. All of that can come together, and there's an ability to add users on the digital marketplace internally that allows you to share that workload if you need to. Okay, so it's quite a useful tool. You can add contributors. The only challenge there is that everything is online, so if someone changes it, you don't see what your changes have been made. We use offline templates that we then upload. Particular importance to hosting and SaaS providers, understand the security principles, understand what that means, and be able to bring that to life in your service definition documents, which is a technical brochure. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We regard this as a technical brochure and as essential, and now that all of our customers have always uploaded these, because it's just how buyers can actually evaluate you and you can get much more information in there about your service. Don't make it your operations manual. Nobody wants to be wading through oodles of bundles of information, but make it concise. And the cloud security principles, back to those. if you assert something, if you say, oh, we comply with something, do something to show where you can do that, how you do it. All right? It's really important, because if you say you've got an ISO 27001, preferably from a UK accredited organisation, like UCAS, someone like that, UCAS accredited organisation, sorry. Try to prove what you can assert. Have that there, because you will be asked. Don't get me wrong. You'll be asked to prove that your credentials and that your security assertions are what they say they are, rather than you. Yeah, of course we've got that, and then there's nothing behind it. Again, as Mark announced, have a look on the spend data. Have a look through the digital marketplace for competitors to see what they're doing, how they're pricing, how they're setting themselves up. The great thing about G-Cloud, you can't put your prices up, you put them down, and from a buyer's perspective, it's a lovely ratchet year after year. It'd be nice to see the prices going down. Yeah. It does, it really helps. And it certainly has saved an awful lot of money over time, certainly since I've been using it. User spend data, we've had a visualization up for about 3 or 4 years. CCS is there as well. So, you can use it for a number of things, really. So check your competitors, see who they're selling to, and what sort of services they're doing. You can also use it to look for partners as well. So if you're looking to break into a particular organisation, such as HMRC, which has a lovely long tail of suppliers that you've used from G-Cloud on there, and you can say, well, actually, if you've been in the industry long enough, you might find people that or networking here at techUK's excellent events. You'll get to meet people, and you're able to then say, okay, well, look, is there any chance you can get us an introduction? What can we do to help you each other? So there used to be, and there still is, a really great ecosystem for G-Cloud suppliers, we've found, once you get to know each other. And people just want to help each other out. It's a fantastic way of doing things. Start as soon as possible. Don't leave it to the last minute. Don't be one of those 1,000 people that didn't finish off their applications. I don't know quite how many of those were recruitment firms who suddenly found out that it wasn't allowed anymore, but maybe one day you'll publish that information, let us know. And as I said, spend time on getting your service definition right. This is probably the most important thing, apart from getting your keywords correct, that we find your pricing correct, that we find for any submissions, and it's one of the differentiators between the ones that are the people that are selling on G-Cloud and those that aren't. And Lindsay can bamboozle you with excellent data as to why that is, and can show you again where you can really improve your stuff on that. So, in terms of some stuff around next steps, we've got some links here to various things that you can do and have a look at. So, it's all about knowing the buying process, making sure you research the digital marketplace as well. The buying process, classic mistake we've seen for a lot of suppliers make, is they don't know how to buy their own services. You're putting something on a marketplace. Surely you should be testing. Especially if you're relisting, because your stuff's already up there. You should be testing how it can be bought. You should know really how your services are being bought. All right. Again, so researching the digital marketplace, making sure that you're keeping an eye on competitors or on market trends as well. Now, one thing we always advise for new entrants is don't wait until you're live on G-Cloud when it goes live in July to start thinking about how you're going to actually capitalise on that year of the digital marketplace that you have. Really start to consider what your sales and marketing plan is now, especially if you're new. Obviously for the purpose of the tape, there are going to be people that will be looking at this. So start thinking about it now. Start thinking about getting your homepage in order. Start thinking about target markets you're going to be looking at. The public sector is a very broad beast. As £18 billion of the spend goes through it a year for technology, and not all suppliers, not all buyers are the same. Health is different to central government, it's different to local, it's different to higher education, different to the security services and defence and blue light. So have a think about what your value proposition is and why people want to buy from you. Because you're gonna, it's 30,000 services, 4,000 suppliers. What sets you apart? What's going to make you different? What's going to make me want to buy from you? All right? We've spoken about the spend data. It's a phenomenal bit of openness and transparency. I wish it was applied to the rest of the frameworks. We do have some data, but certainly not to the level of openness and transparency you have here. I think this is one of the key things that has helped SMEs grow in this marketplace. Back in the bad old days, I think there was a report done by Cable and by Martha Lane Fox on around better for less and then transforming digital economy. It said that 80% of the public sector spend went to 20 suppliers, and 54% of that went to 5. You know, that digital marketplace has completely transformed that experience now, and more kudos to it. And I think that having that openness and transparency, especially with the spend data, there's nothing hidden. There's no backroom deals. There's not ever perish the thought, Minister, that anyone would ever do anything like that. But there's no place to hide here. Okay. And I really do wish that the whole of CCS, not just technical people, would take that to heart and start publishing that. It would save so many hours in freedom of information requests. Okay. Sorry, that's me off my soapbox. Demo the problem, not the product. It's as we do lots of events and we get buyers together with some of our suppliers and others, and a common theme that we have from CIOs, from people from Ministry of Justice, so someone from HMRC, Anthony came along to one of our events, they're talking about, tell me how your stuff can solve my problems, not what it actually does. Tell me what problem you're solving. All right. Quite important here for anyone who's new to digital marketplace and G-Cloud. G-Cloud isn't a source of inbound leads. People will come to you. Occasionally, you might get some drive-bys, but in the main, it's stuff that you need. It's a toolkit. It's an additional thing to use when you're actually out in the field trying to sell to people. All right. So making sure that G-Cloud is going into your marketing and your sales strategy. You've got a plan to actually how you're going to exploit being on the framework, and how buyers are going to be able to find you and know about you and trust you. All right. And certainly from a submission perspective, do plan your capacity and resources. The framework is open during Easter. I'm a dad. This can be a little bit difficult sometimes, especially if you suddenly find half your team have disappeared off to Easter holidays. Happens on the buyer side, actually, when trying to buy stuff, especially in summer. But just be aware of that when you're doing it, okay? Finally, a little bit about us, how we can help. So obviously we can help you get onto any of the frameworks, or we have services for people that are new to it, people that are just beginning their journey, and people that have been on these things for a while and want to help grow and expand. We do lots of workshops and trainings, plenty of stuff around bid work that we'll do as well, attacking everything from a buyer's perspective. You have dedicated account management. One of my account managers is here. Is Hannah there? I've actually got to dash off quite quickly. So if you want to have a chat to Hannah there, is hand up. Hannah, thank you. She's there if anyone's got any questions about Advice Cloud. We can help you call off contract support. And we've also got what we call a procurement phone a friend service. So if you've got queries and questions you're not sure about, there is that there. It's chargeable, but it's not too expensive. So in terms of next steps, finally, as I say, stay up to date with the dynamic purchasing system frameworks. We have a framework alert service, but obviously you can follow the stuff on CCS as well. We do lots and lots of stuff. We give away huge amounts of content, as I say, part of the ethos about making life easier. And we're able to say a bit more real-world stuff about how things work, obviously in a compliant way. Please feel free. There's links there to organise calls with us, how we can discuss your support with G-Cloud. There's links into diaries in there. You're more than welcome to do that. And finally, some resources here as well. So spend data, loads of stuff around service definition, talking about the transition from 11 to 12, reasons to listing on G-Cloud as well, what the value is. There's a little nifty guide to G-Cloud and to DOS as well that we put up there. And of course, then you've got finally what's probably the most important thing, I think, for any supplier is to get to know the Crown Commercial Services G-Cloud Suppliers Guide as well. All right, there's a wealth of information in there, and if you have a look at the buyers' guides as well, huge amount of information there that's very useful to you that you may not even know exists. Okay, so with that, over to the questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Brilliant, both working. So my colleague Ellie will be manning the roving mic. Wonderful. Mark, if you're all right too, thank you so much. So please, just for the benefit of those who are dining in remotely, please do remember to use the the microphone if you've got a question. But firstly, thank you very much all for two great presentations. A lot of useful information there. Key dates, ODU published on Friday. Start applying on Monday. Get your applications in early. Tuesday. Tuesday. Get your applications in early. Ask clarifications ASAP if you have any, etc. And I would just say as well, a lot of basically everything I know about this, I gleaned from the resources on the Advice Cloud website. They're really good. Do check them out. We'll share the slide deck so you can follow through with there, and do have a chat to Chris and colleagues afterwards. But let's throw it open to the floor. Any initial questions from anyone? A couple there. Gentleman at the front, and then go to
Mike.
Oh, sorry.
It's about the service definition documents. You said the reason for introducing those as a mandatory requirement now is to help standardise the information that buyers see. Are you planning on producing a template for that, just to kind of enforce that standardisation?
Sorry, not for G-Cloud 12, although we do think that might be a good idea. But at this stage, it's really to just start this process off, just to make sure it is a mandatory requirement. And I think, perhaps in future iterations that, we might be looking to do that. But it's for G-Cloud 12, it's up to you to design your own service definition documents. And, it's treat it like your shop window. It's you're selling your service here. So, don't make it too markety. Don't make it too technical. Write it with your audience in mind, which are, the public sector buyers. Some of them might be technologists, some of them won't be. So just bear that in mind.
Okay, thanks.
Just to add to that, when we've done some analysis around suppliers where a number have done business, a number haven't, we often find that the ones that haven't done any business don't have service descriptions, and that's very much, we believe, why, because the detail isn't there for there to be a fair comparison.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan Turner from Boomerang. We've been on G-Cloud since at least 7. I've been intimately involved since 9 onwards within the company. And although we contribute to the statistics of, we're one of your suppliers that have sold through G-Cloud, we have absolutely had no contact from the buyers through G-Cloud looking for us. We've sold by going to the buyer and saying, here's our product, it's great, do you like it? Oh, yes, we do, thanks very much, we'll have 3 of those. Right, now reverse engineer it, go back into G-Cloud and buy it that way. Is there going to be, in the future, do you see CSS doing anything to make it easier and actually make the system work as was described by both of the speakers this morning?
So, yeah, I mean, G-Cloud, it's the buyers will search, using the search function and the filters, and come up with a list. So, you're obviously doing exactly the right thing and not sitting back on your laurels and just waiting for the business to come to you. And that would be our advice. You still have to, carry on and do your usual marketing and, speaking to your buyers, or your customers, I should say, and making sure, you need to do that yourselves as suppliers. You can't just sit there and wait for the business to come to you. I mean, what CCS are doing is that, I mentioned in my presentation, in July last year, we've employed about 30 business development managers across the country. So they're knocking on doors of NHS trusts, local authorities, and big wider public sector organisations to raise the profile of CCS and making sure that the wider public sector, especially, know that we're there. Because I think in the past, the feedback we've had is that we have never seen anybody from CCS before. How come you're starting to come out to us now? The reason is because we've now got resources and people to do that. We've got a team of people to get out there and make CCS more visible. So that's what we're doing in making our frameworks more visible to the public sector. But obviously, suppliers still need to do your job in promoting your services and your organisations.
If I can just ask you a question on that as well, have you looked at the sales data as well to see if what your competitors are doing in that space? Because I'm wondering whether there's anything that can be done in terms of the wording that you're using or short descriptions and things, so whether or not you're coming up in those searches.
Yeah, I'm unaware of what our competitors won that we could have won through G-Cloud. I am aware that competitors of ours have won from other frameworks that we weren't on at that time. So my answer to your exact question is no, I don't know what our competitors have done through G-Cloud.
Okay, so I'd strongly suggest have a look at that sales data, have a look, see what your competitors are doing in that space, and if you can see that they're doing work with departments in there, and you can see what business they're conducting through G-Cloud, have a look at their services and have a look at the terminology and the wording that they're using to see if there's any sort of key words or phrases that you might be able to put into your short description.
Okay, right, sorry, and at the risk of heading off on a tangent and hogging the microphone, but I think this could be of interest to everyone. You've mentioned there, be sure to get our description in that short description. Is that what it's searched against? Or we hear about the importance of the service definition. Is that what is searched against?
It's searched against the short description and your features and benefits sections. It's not searched against the service definitions, but the search that's conducted is like the first stage, if you like, to the long list, and then you'll find that buyers will go into the detail of that service description to narrow things down further.
Fantastic, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, and going back to Chris's point, do use that spend data that's out there. Was there a gentleman at the front? Oh, and then Rory at the front.
Just to build on what you said there, I think I'm right in saying also it searches the title. Could be wrong. Pretty sure it does. So there's quite a lot of it that's searched. The other thing I was going to ask you there about the spend data, I'll build on that point. The problem with looking at that spend data is you don't actually know what anyone's bought. There's no way of knowing which service has been bought. So the analysis you can do is quite limited. You know who the buyer was, you know who the supplier was, you know what the spend was. That's pretty much it. So it's very hard to do detailed analysis to know if you're saying their offers are comparative to my offers, say. You can't work that out from that data alone, I don't think, unless you tell me you know something I don't.
No, agreed. Certainly there is a level, we only go to a level of detail in that spend data. But that said, you can still see if your competitors are selling on G-Cloud and in what lots, so you can take it down to that level. And then I guess it just depends on how many services that you've got that might overlap.
Yeah, I'd agree with Sandra there as well. I mean, from an SME's perspective, most SMEs don't really have that many listings on G-Cloud, so they can actually then look quite comparatively, quite relatively straightforwardly to find what their competitors are up to. We find that the people that have multiple listings of different types of stuff, like the bigger resellers and the bigger SIs, yeah, sure, that's a bit opaque.
Okay, and my actual question was going to be more about the application, so I'll move on to a different topic. So last year, you said nothing's changed as a cut and paste, and I think if I remember rightly, that was said for last year too. But in fact, some of the questions had changed as part of the application. And from memory, I think somewhere around security, maybe that was the one that stuck in my mind. Can you confirm that absolutely nothing has changed in that sense this year? Because if so, that requires quite a lot of prep, especially, as Chris just said, if you've got a lot of offers to manage.
Okay, I think on declaration there's one set of questions that have changed. So it was, I think for G-Cloud 11, I can't remember exactly the questions or how it was worded, but it was something like, if you answer yes to the following two questions, you'll pass, or if you answer no to the following two questions, you'll fail. But the questions were really independent of each other, so you could have answered yes or could have answered no to one or the other and still passed. So the logic was wrong around the questions. So these two questions have been changed now to something like, please confirm you will do this or for each question. So the logic around these questions have been changed. So my advice would be to, when you are copying over or filling your declarations in, double check all your answers. Don't assume they're going to be exactly the same as last year, because there could be minor amendments, but there's nothing significantly changed which changes the meaning or the what's intended.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great advice as well. Do double check. Is there a question at the front? All right.
Rory Davis from OnWave. I was wondering about search data. So are we able to see any data about what search terms were searched for, so that we can say these are the kind of services that current people are looking for through the G-Cloud framework? And also on that subject is the search data. How intelligent is the search? So if I, for example, searched SD space WAN, would it pick up SD-WAN? So therefore, should I have SD-WAN and SD-WAN and SD-WAN with no space in my title to ensure that I pick up on someone searching for 3 variants of the same term?
Yeah. So to answer your 2 questions, the first answer is a short no. We can't get any statistics or data on what's been searched for. We've spoken to our partners, GDS, Government Digital Service, and they've said that's not available. So unfortunately, we can't get that. And I agree that would be very useful to have that data. The search function, again, is perhaps not as intelligent as you might find on other search functions on the internet. So if you're looking up, sort of an example I quite often use to buyers is, if you're looking for an e-sourcing system, you might type in e-sourcing and get 15 hits, or you might type in